Galen, thanks for joining us today on the podcast. You have a very interesting story in that you are a first-generation farmer. Tell me how you found your way, or tell me what you farm and how you found your way to that farm.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a conventional farm story where it's been handed down generation to generation. We started this literally 10 years ago. And it came out of me being a very mediocre student, to be honest, mediocre to less than that. Mainly because I was in college and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of jumped majors 4 or 5 times, finally landed on political science, basically because, I could write and enjoyed the classes. That was basically it, but didn't exactly have a plan for something to do with a political science degree. You
didn't want to go be a lobbyist or anything?
Right. Yeah, that wasn't really speaking to me. So I was really struggling with the age-old question of every liberal arts major is, what do I do after this? And so I was working on a project for a class where we were really looking at, it was an English class where it was writing about food. And the particular topic that we were looking at was food policy and a lot to do with the Farm Bill and things like that. And me being a very mediocre student, when I should have been writing a paper, I was going down YouTube rabbit holes of how food is being produced in the country and alternative methods. And really looking at farmers who are taking a direct market approach of producing the food and taking it all the way to the end consumer, kind of protecting themselves from market fluctuations and producing things a little unorthodox, and really producing food in a way that is protecting topsoil and building topsoil. So that was the topics of agriculture that were really speaking to me, and I found very interesting.
Yeah. And were those any particular crop? Like, was it cattle? Was it
was
chicken?
It was all protein. So I was mainly interested in the intensive rotational grazing of cattle and how it's how grass-fed beef is produced on small to mid-sized scale, and then how it gets to market. Which kind of led me to, at the time, I was actually going through the military entrance process and talking to a recruiter, went down to New Orleans, went through MIPS, took my physicals, got my medical waivers, and I was thinking about joining the Marines.
Just because you didn't have another option, really? Or?
I was looking at officer candidate school and things like that. I had 1 more year left of school. That was something I was like, well, I could parlay this into something else.
Yeah.
I had my attorney.
I could learn a trade or learn a skill.
Yeah, a skill in the military to parlay and maybe a career in military. But my attorney brother was saying, for the love of God, we don't need any more attorneys in life. So he kind of steered me away from law school. Not that I had the grades to go knock it dead in law school or anything.
You didn't like undergrad, much less law school, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't that I didn't like school. I couldn't find anything that really spoke to me, and I wanted to parlay into a career and that was kind of what led me to agriculture. Is in my junior year, I was like, what do I want to do? And it came down to, I want to produce something. Whether it's a widget, whittling sticks, or producing meat. I want to produce something that goes to a customer. I can have that relationship.
I was going to ask you, what is it about the farm or about agriculture, about the food, production cycle that attracted you? But I guess it's the being able to have a product at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, as far as an agricultural product, for me, it was producing something with some integrity behind it, being able to speak to it and really have some convictions about putting that product out there. Because to me, that's the only way you can sell something is if you have some conviction about what you're doing. Yeah, like people selling me something that they don't really believe in, I can see through that. Yeah. So I wanted to believe in what I was selling. And to me, when you're producing an agricultural product, you better believe in it.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of.
Were you really growing up? Were you really, aware or conscious of what, kind of food you were eating, and what? Did you have that kind of approach? I guess, did you develop that through college or through this class?
Yeah, mostly through that class. My parents are good cooks, and we always ate really well at home. But as far as like really thinking about where that food came from or how it was produced, no. I mean, my dad's joke was half of what you see here when he would point to, I have 2 brothers, when he would point to us, he would say, half of what you see here came from Sam's Club. So that was his kind of, he was bang for buck kind of grocery shopper. Yeah. we ate a lot, and he needed to be able to afford to eat to feed us. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I grew up with. It was something that just kind of, I read Michael Pollan's Omnivore Dilemma. There's a Barbara Kingsolver wrote Animal Vegetable Miracle. Books like that really opened up my eyes to how food's produced and things like that. Yeah.
One of the things that, is fascinating to me being in the YouTube age, our generation, we learn, you mentioned the rabbit hole, but we learn a lot on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, you can learn how to make a podcast like this on YouTube now.
Learn how to cut meat on YouTube.
You learn how to be a butcher. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, is that where you got the extent of your education on, this food system?
Well, no. So, I did a lot of research, found some people around the country that I really wanted to focus on and seeing how they were doing it. Namely, Joel Salatin up in Virginia. Went up there, visited his farm for an intensive seminar.
An internship?
He does a seminar there every year that you can go up there and spend a few days. And then I found an internship in New Hampshire through ATRA, which is funded by a SARE grant. It's basically a resources for organic farmers. And so I went up there on an internship, spent a season there. We were mostly doing produce. We were growing 40 acres of certified organic produce up there, but we also had beef cattle, some hogs, and poultry. And then that was the main reason for doing that was, I'm 23 years old. I've never spent a day on a farm. I want to see if I have the physical and mental fortitude to wake up every day and do the work that's required of a farm.
I mean, you obviously found out you liked it.
I loved it. Yeah, it was great. I loved having a mission to every day that I woke up. There was, whether you had a plan or not, there was something going to face you that you had to solve that day. Yeah. And there was no time to it. It was, you wake up and you work till it's done.
One of the things that's neat about, I grew up on a farm very differently than you did.
Right.
But you learn this, whether you're grown up on it or if you spend a season on it, every day is different. And I know that's probably true for you, especially now.
Every single day is a new set of challenges.
You got the same kind of work, but there's some kind of different twist to everything. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I was born to farm," but I think it's more of you're born with the coping and problem solving skills to farm. You know, and not everybody has that. You know, it's a challenging way to make a living.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, you talked about kind of where this inspiration came from, where this, how you learned kind of this, but tell me what your farm is like today, or how you got to this farm. I know you and your dad kind of went in together.
Yeah. So the way our farm is structured, Dad had the capital to buy land. I didn't. I was a college student. There was no way I was going to get convince a bank to lend me money to buy land. So the way our farm is structured is my parents own the land, and then we have a farming entity that is a tenant of the land that we're 50-50 partners on. So the farm entity rents the land from the land company. Okay.
And now tell me about what are you raising? I mean, cattle?
So when I came back from New Hampshire, we started real small. We bought 65 acres in Kentwood, Louisiana, mainly in Kentwood because I knew Baton Rouge was going to be our market. Baton Rouge, possibly New Orleans. I needed to be at least an hour from, or no more than an hour from a metropolitan area, but I needed to be out of town to where land become somewhat affordable. To farm. So we got up there, started small cow herd, a few pigs, and I think we did 800 chickens that year or something like that. And really started at the Red Stick Farmers Market that year. It was a great launch point to get our products out there and kind of learn. You know, that was, my dad is a big vision guy, and he was ready to jump all in and dump a bunch of money and get this thing big. But I had the mentality of, I got a lot to learn, and the big, mistakes in this industry are very expensive. And it costs animal welfare. You got to be, we have animals depending on us here. I don't want to let animal welfare suffer because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So it was a good launch point to, business minds would say that was a wrong move because cash flow was really hard. So basically we took the demand from farmers markets and just grew it every year. So that was in 2010 was the first year we had a product to sell. We're in 2019 now. We're on 130 acres, so we ended up acquiring the land next door to us, and we're finishing out 350 hogs a year, 180 to 200 head of cattle, and about 10,000 chickens, about 500-600 turkeys.
What's really cool about your operation, to me, and I've been out to the farm. I know you've had Taylor Fry came out to the farm too before I was even here.
She did the intern work day or whatever.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Was it
with Mike? Yeah.
Mike Dana came out there. Yeah. So I knew about the farm before I even came and worked here at Farm Bureau, but then I got to come and visit the farm and see kind of how things are working. It's really neat. You really put your animals to work.
Right.
You use your livestock to take care of the land, which is pretty cool. Tell me about how they all work together.
Yeah. So, and a lot's been being said about this recently in a lot of publications about animals' effect on soil and carbon dioxide and all other things. But basically, the mission of our farm is to use our animals to mimic nature, how they would have been behaving in nature if man hadn't come along and domesticated them. Somewhat, So we are using managed intensive rotational grazing using multiple species. So basically, the way our grazing works is we're setting up daily paddock moves for our cattle. What that's doing for us and for the cows is we're able to maximize the acreage that we're on. We're a small farm, so we're able to maximize that acreage. We're harvesting fresh grass every day for those cows and able to keep it in that vegetative state to where it's got the highest amount of nutrients. We're moving those cattle from yesterday's manures to where the parasite load is lower on them. So that's better for their health, of course, but it's also allowing us to reduce the amounts of chemical wormers and fly sprays and things like that. And then it's also mowing that. We're also trampling grass, which is feeding the microbes in our soil. So that's what it comes down to. We're feeding microbes and earthworms in our soil, and that's what's building the topsoil. So using strategic animal impact to build that topsoil, but mainly feeding the microbes, which is doing that for us. So behind the cows, we come with our poultry, whether that's our chickens or turkeys that we raise for the holidays. Those turkeys are coming behind the cows and sanitizing and fertilizing that pasture. They're going to pick through those cow pies, eat the parasite larva, and then put down really high nitrogen fertilizer behind them. So we're able to basically have our own fertilizer on farm.
What I love about that is that you're 130 acres now. In agriculture terms, that's a tiny farm.
That's a very small farm.
Yep. And I love that because Galen Iverstine's at 23, you and your dad can go and find this piece of land and say, you got to be creative. How can we make a living on this piece of land doing, this rotational grazing?
Right. Yeah. And what we're able to do, in most farms, you're going to have this commodities being produced over here, this commodities being produced over here. What we're able to do is stack enterprises on the same acreage. So our animals are visiting different acreage throughout the year, so we're not having to dedicate particular acreage to particular things. And that was a big reason we moved away from doing cow-calf production on our farm and went to straight stocker cattle, so we could run one herd. It just makes a small farm run a lot more efficiently.
Easier to manage, right?
It's a lot easier to manage. It's less land intensive because we're not having to manage a bull herd and a weaning herd and a cow herd. And so we're able to run all those cattle together. Yep.
You move these every day. Your chickens, do you move those every day, or
so the way we
your
do
poultry's moving about once a week?
About once a week. So
okay.
we raise we've shifted that model almost every year, but we've settled on something the last couple of years where basically we're running larger batches of birds and moving them in larger areas on the farm and moving them less frequent. So before we were running groups of 50 and moving them daily, and that got to be pretty labor intensive. So now we're running groups of 400 and moving them weekly, but in larger areas.
Yeah, yep. You're having to be more efficient. You've doubled the size of the farm, of the land that you're covering.
Right. Yeah.
You've picked up the production, and this is kind of all going back to the farmers market. You were originally just a farmers market. Tell me how that that production grew. Did it follow your business into Baton Rouge, or did the business pick up and you had to grow? How did that kind of work?
I hate to use the word, but we grew our business organically.
Of course.
So we allowed the market to dictate what we did. Yeah, of course, we did some strategic stuff to make sure we were getting more people to that farmer's market. We were reaching out to more restaurants and things like that. But we figured out where our ceiling was there. And I think it was 2014, we were looking at it, and the slaughterhouse was making more money on our animals than we were, because we were paying them to do all the processing and cutting for us. And we were looking at it and said, well, what if we took that cost in-house, did the processing ourselves, and then had a retail component to that, to where we're open 7 days a week and we can move more product and at 100% retail. So the higher amounts of our product we can move at retail, the better our margins are going to be.
So that led to y'all's butcher shop.
That's right.
Downtown Baton Rouge, not downtown technically, but we're in the heart of Baton Rouge.
Yeah, we're in the South Downs area.
Yeah.
Yep. Over on Perkins Road. We opened there in 2016. So that was about a 2-year process of building building inventory on farm to be able to support it. Because I mean, it was a big question mark of what's the volume going to be that we move through there. And the only way we were able to come up with that is I took farmers market sales. That was like 6 to 8 hours a week, and extrapolated that out and said, well, we're going to be open 50 something hours a week. And yeah, we nailed the number pretty close based on those numbers. Yeah. So we opened in October of 2016, and we're coming up on 3 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been fun. I actually got to go out there the week you opened.
That's right.
It was pretty recently after I'd done the story with you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to kind of watch. I've been able to watch the process and obviously partake in some of the stuff out of the cabinet, the behind the window of the butcher glass. But one of the coolest things about your shop is the window, where we can see. You can go into the butcher shop, and you can obviously see everything in the cabinet, in the case. Is that what you call it? The case?
Yeah, the meat case.
The meat case. Yep. You can see everything in there, but you can also, there's a window into the actual, butcher room.
Cut room.
Cut room. The cut room.
That was a really important part of the design of the building, because, everybody hears the word butcher and they think they know what that means. It's a lot more than just the steaks that are being cut at your grocery store. So to me, to really drive that home and show those customers this isn't your typical butcher shop, we have a 4x5 window that looks straight into that cutting cooler, that you see a side of beef, a side of pig hit the table and get fabricated into your steak.
What I like about that is it's something that's bigger than just a shop, but it's kind of the way that y'all do things on the farm and the way that y'all do things in the shop. But it's transparency. It's showing that customer, hey, this is how it starts and this is how it finishes. And that happens also out on the farm too, and something I've seen.
Yeah, I mean that's been pretty surprising for us, is the amount of like the educational component of what we do. Educating people about meat and how to cook. That's probably 70% of the conversations that happen in that shop is how to cook a cut of meat.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, because the grocery stores have moved to the box meat model, you're only seeing 3 or 4 cuts out there.
You got a New York strip, a ribeye.
That's right.
Maybe a filet.
And a filet. That's
a roast.
Pretty much what everybody knows how to cook. And there's a lot more interesting cuts out there that we can educate them on, inform them about. Because, being a whole animal butcher shop, the fact of the matter is you're going to sell out of a cut.
I've been in the shop one time with you, and you actually had ribeyes available.
Yeah, see. Yeah, I mean, and that's just part of it. It's a volume game to where I can't justify bringing in another animal just for ribeyes, because I've got, for every 20 pounds of ribeye that I have, I've got 40 to 50 pounds of round to move, so we've gotten creative on how to move those products through snack sticks and jerkies. And
which you brought us some today. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's I leave trails of jerky everywhere I go. So yeah, I mean, that's been kind of the fun part of it, is a lot of R&D. Like I said, the day we open, me and our first butcher, when somebody come in and ask for a particular cut, we would just automatically say, yeah, we can do that, because we knew we could. We have the whole animal there to work with, but we'd have to run to the office, watch a YouTube video real quick, and then run back to the cut room and cut it.
It's a lot of learning on the fly.
Learning on the fly. So that's what was been fun, is like everybody that works in that shop right now had 0 days of cutting experience when they came to work for us. But I love it because it was a clean blank slate, and we've taught them the way we want to cut. And they're really creative guys.
You're also probably able to use feedback from customers too to kind of fine tune, right?
Absolutely. And like, Baton Rouge has a pretty diverse clientele, and the amount of people who have lived in different parts of the world, they'll come in and look for a particular cut that they can't find, and they know we can do it. That's what's been kind of fun.
That's kind of neat. Yep. So you get to kind of learn new cuts that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, like right now, something that's really popular in barbecue culture is the picanha. And we were selling picanhas before picanhas were sexy.
What is picanha?
So picanha is a cap of the sirloin. Like in the United States, we usually leave it on the sirloin and just serve it as a sirloin steak. But if you pull it off, you leave the fat on it. It's got about probably half-inch layer of fat on the outside of it that you just leave there. It's like a basting layer. So if you've ever been to like one of the churrascarias, like Texas de Brazil or something like that, that's the cut of meat with the big fat cap on it that they're carving off the.
Interesting.
Yep, it's a Brazilian style cut.
That's awesome. One of the things you mentioned, the educational and like kind of showing somebody maybe an alternative to, hey, I know you want ribeye. Can't do that, but try this. Have you gotten good feedback from people that take something and try it for the first time?
Yeah, because people have this mentality of pork being bad for you and tasteless. So any chance we can change people's mind about that, we take that chance. So if somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I'm looking for a ribeye," well, let's say we're out of ribeyes, I immediately know how they're wanting to cook that night. They're telling me they're wanting to grill, so we'll step over 1 foot and say, "Hey, man, we're out of ribeyes, but take this pork chop here, take it home and cook it just like you're going to cook that ribeye. Leave it a little medium, simple season, and cook it just like a steak." And that person we've changed their life.
That was my first interaction with you ever.
See, like that's what people tell me. It's like, man, I know you about your pork chops, and hey, I'll wear that.
Well, my first interaction was you handing me, I think 4 pork chops and said salt and pepper, a little slab of butter, maybe. Just cook it like you would a ribeye, and that's exactly what you told me.
Yeah, because pork in conventional production methods these days, they're getting a very monoculture diet. So it's going to be a corn soybean ration and not much more than that, which leads to a very bland flavor profile in the fat. And in pork, all the flavor is in the fat. So our hogs, we're raising them out in a wooded area where they're getting grasses, roots, worms, grubs, acorns during the fall. They get a corn and soybean ration as well to make sure they're gaining adequately, but they're getting all this variety to their diet that's going to add to the complexity of the flavors of the meat. So that's the main thing, and as well as the breed of hog. We're raising a heritage breed Berkshire hog that hasn't been bred for leanness, so it'll lay down fat a lot better than kind of more modern genetics.
Gotcha.
Yep.
We talked about picanha, and I've never even heard of that cut, but something I've gotten into lately is, barbecuing, smoking. I bought a Traeger. I jumped on the bandwagon, and I love it because I can smoke meats. I can cook longer cooks. So I've gotten really in particular about the kind of meat. So I can imagine how that picanha, would be something special. I might have to try it. But what else?
We get that a lot. Like
you have a lot of people doing that?
Come in, it's like, man, I got a Traeger. Like Traeger's all the rage right now. Before that, it was the big green egg and things like that. But yeah, when people tell us how they're going to cook, that kind of shows us where we need to direct them. We have a cooking method in mind. Okay, now we know what cuts are going to work for that.
That's awesome.
And that's what's fun. Yeah.
That's really cool. So let's move to something else. Every time I cook something on the Traeger, I pull my phone out, I make an Instagram story of some sort to rub it in my friend's face.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. But it's something I do with everything I cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to share the food you cooked. But so I know that's something that you've done for a long time. Since the beginning since at least I've been watching. You've been very active on social media with the farm, with the butcher shop. How has that played a role? Like, where does that fall in the equation of how you do things?
Yeah, I mean, whether we like to admit it or not, social media is a very valuable tool in what we're doing. It's the cheapest, most effective way to get a message out. I think between Facebook and Instagram, we're knocking on like 7,000 followers. So like, I could pull ads, I can do all these sorts of things, but I can pick up my phone, snap a picture, and get a message out pretty effectively. It's a challenge for us because there's so many aspects to what we do, and how to like balance the content of what we're posting, whether it's food, farm, or butchering. So that's kind of the challenge for us. We've had like social media management companies approach us about management, and I'm just honest with them. Like, there's no way that some outside office person is going to be able to effectively communicate what we're doing.
Well, what's really cool about yours is it's from the field, or it's from, the butcher, the cutting room. You know, that's what's I think makes your feed really something that,
and it's the people doing
people can engage. Yeah.
It's the butchers that are making the post. It's the farmers that are making the post.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's, I've kind of, we had somebody working the shop doing it for a while for us, and she did a great job. She moved to DC, and I kind of had to take it over. I mean, I was the original poster on the farm just because we had no employees. But I've made like a conscious effort over the last 6 months to like at least post every other day, or if not every day. And it's just communicating with customers. It creates a level of transparency and really shows them when they can see a post in one day of us moving cows, and then that afternoon seeing our butchers cut steaks. That's full circle. They're able to see the whole story right there.
Well, they're cutting steaks, and then sometimes you post about what you like the steak actually on your plate.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, it kind of aggravates my wife sometimes where like we're sitting down to eat and I'm snapping a picture of my plate. I feel like such a fangirl when I'm doing it, but it's like it's easy content. It's like I'm obviously cooking our meat every night. Why not show people how we're cooking it? Because they're looking for ideas, and
what goes well with this pork chop.
And everybody's so intimidated by cooking these days. And the point I'm trying to get across is that I don't have a ton of time to cook. Usually when I cook, it takes me about 30 minutes, and this is what I'm whipping up. It's easy. Like we overthink cooking. Like we think everything's got to be gourmet and perfect and everything. Look in your fridge, make a pot of rice and go from there.
Yeah.
That's my go-to. Make a pot of rice and then we'll start from there.
You're the cook in the house, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
You also run a business in the butcher shop, and you run the farm, and you cook, and you have 2 children, a wife, a family. How do you work all that? Like keep all that straight? Like it's so much stuff to do.
I'm trying to get better at it. Honestly, sometimes it feels like I'm doing everything part time. So I'm trying to figure out where my time is best spent. When we were pregnant for our second child, I made a conscious, hey, I have to be more available at home. When we had 2 under 2 when we had our second, and that's all hands on deck every night.
Yeah.
One person can't handle that at night. So I made a conscious effort of being home by a particular time. Some mornings, I try to get out of the house as early as I can in the morning. Some mornings I drag my feet a little bit to make sure at least one child is fed before I just kind of abandon my wife for the day. But I mean, it's a delicate balance, and you always got to be mindful of and taking the temperature of everything and checking in on the shop, making sure everything's working properly there. Being at the farm, and that over the last year, I've been able to get back to the farm more and really grease the wheels there and get that thing operating the way it should. And then, being home playing with kids. Yeah. That's very important.
What do you do? I mean, I know it, with all of that, it's hard to have time for fun, and time, you spend probably 20 hours a week probably riding around back and forth to the farm or to the processing plant.
Going to the slaughterhouse, making home deliveries, and going back and forth to the farm about 18 to 20 hours a week.
Seems like that would cut into any kind of fun, Galen, personal time. But what do you do like outside of work and all that? Are you fitness?
Yeah, I've tried to get back in shape. My health wasn't the greatest 2 years ago, so I wanted to get that back under control. So I get started at about 4 a.m, get a good workout in. That just clears my head and gets me ready to tackle the day. Every year, me and some buddies of mine try to go on like a good long backpacking trip. That's one of the healthiest things for my head, because like you go out there, nobody can get you on the phone.
Put your phone away.
You put your phone away. We backpack during the day. Nobody talks. It's silent. It's some alone time.
It's work, probably.
It's great. Yeah, it's physical. And then I grew up riding dirt bikes, and I've recently tried to get back into that.
Got you.
So just staying active. Like, farming is an active lifestyle, but being intentional about fitness and being healthy, because I want to be here for a long time.
How does that, intentionality, being more healthy, match up with your farm and the food that you raise?
Yeah, I mean,
where would that line up? Where does the food line up in that?
Food is, you can work out as much as you want, but if you're not eating right, it's all for naught. You have to eat well. And that's something I try to communicate to my customers. Baton Rouge is kind of a weird market for that because a lot of times eating comes first and the health comes second. You can eat really well healthy. It's not hard. You know, you start with a protein, you got a vegetable and a little bit of starch. This is easy stuff. Like, and that goes back to the Instagram. Like, it's not hard to eat well.
Yeah. That's something I've seen. Your plates usually have, you know, a meat and a couple of veggies or something like that. And it's not, you know, huge,
it's not fancy
spreads or anything. What is your kind of go-to source of protein? I mean, you got 3 really good options.
So this is going to sound odd, but my wife doesn't eat meat. So the only meat she'll eat is chicken, white meat chicken.
Okay.
And white meat chicken's not my favorite. I'm more of a leg and thigh guy, but she's perfectly happy with like a vegetarian option. But basically the meat decisions I'm making is based on what doesn't sell or is damaged. So my mind's always on the bottom line and like the margins, and I'll say, what's the crooked looking steak or the freezer burn this or whatever? I'll take that home and make use of it.
Gotcha.
Honestly. But yeah, I mean, I try to mix it up to where it's not getting boring. But honestly, I could eat a stir fry over rice almost every night of the week.
For somebody that wants to, you know, see actually what your product is, where can we go and find the butcher shop or the farm? Are you still at the farmer's market every week?
No, we stopped doing the farmer's market this year, and that was one of those big decisions of I can't do it all. I gotta spend time with my family, and Saturday mornings is the time I want to spend with my family when we're all under the same roof. So that was a big decision for us. The farmer's market was a great launching point for us. I'm still involved over there. We're doing a big fundraiser with them in the fall. In Baton Rouge, we're open 7 days a week. It's pretty unique. Baton Rouge, this is something happening in a lot larger cities, and Baton Rouge has a butcher shop bringing in whole animals, and it's open 7 days a week.
Real quick, you said that. I meant to ask you about this earlier. You said the whole animal.
Yep.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, so the difference between a whole animal butcher shop and like the meat department at your grocery store, meaning we bring in an entire carcass and we make use of that entire carcass. We're not getting on the phone with a meat distributor and saying, send me 8 boxes of ribeyes, 25, and, you know, we have to use the whole animal. And that's a big part of what we do is informing the customer on what that means for them.
It's a responsible way to do it too, right?
It's the most responsible way you can eat meat.
Yeah.
Is because we're making use of the whole thing. We're making dog treats out of the ears. We're making dog bones out of the bones. We're making jerkies and snack sticks. And to me, it's like on the farm, we have a philosophy of respecting that animal. We're showing that animal utmost respect, high animal welfare, and we want to carry that all the way through the shop. So it's very important for us to respect the life that animal lived by making use of the entire animal and not being wasteful.
So you're saying it's unsustainable to eat nothing but boneless, skinless chicken breasts?
That's right. I tell my wife that every night.
That's fun. So we find you on social media, Iverstine Farms, Iverstine Family Butcher Shop. How's the name? On
Facebook, we're Iverstine Family Farms, and then on Instagram, we're Iverstine Farms.
Okay. We're gonna share all that stuff.
And then IverstineFarms.com or IverstineFarmsButcher.com on there. We have a lot. It's a really, really great resource to go on there. There's diagrams of whole animals to where you can kind of break down and see where the cuts are coming from, whether they're locomotive or structural muscles. And we get kind of science nerdy on there.
Yeah.
A lot of great information on our raising practices, as well as we have a subscription service that you can go on there, subscribe to a bundle of meat that gets delivered to your doorstep.
Everybody doing subscription boxes now.
That's right. Amazon has been doing this forever. Can't beat them, join them.
Yeah. So what can you get in a box? What's a box like?
Yeah, so it's a monthly delivery that you get delivered to your house. Our bundle is basically going to be all 3 of the proteins that we raise, beef, chicken, and pork. And it's going to be, you're going to have ground beef for sure, some sort of breakfast for sure, whether it's bacon or breakfast sausage, smoked sausage, and then from there you'll have about another 5 to 6 items.
Got you.
Roast, chops, sausages, and things like that. But basically, it'll feed a family of 4 about 7 to 8 meals a week.
Awesome.
I mean, a month. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for $150,
It's $125 delivered straight to your door.
You can't really beat that for 7 meals.
You know, and we're also working with Red Stick Spice, and Milnick over there is doing a monthly recipe that you get emailed to you that is going to be for one of the cuts that's in the box. So this month is flanken style short ribs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so you got a subscription box, a butcher box once a month. What else is coming for the shop? Anything new adding up here?
So right now we're just doing the butcher bundles locally. So the surrounding parishes around East Baton Rouge Parish, we're hoping by the end of the year we can start shipping them. All of our animals are now being slaughtered at a federal plant at McNeese State University in Lacassine. So now we were able to ship those products across state lines. So we want to take advantage of that and start doing that because we get requests from people around the country, so we can start shipping across state lines through our website. We are wanting to kind of start wholesaling a little more of our product. Right now, we're just retailing out of our shop based on our inspection level. But we're wanting to be able to wholesale to grocers and things like that. You know, our retail location's great. We love it. But do we want to build more retail locations or just have our product available to more customers in rural or outlying areas at the grocery store that they're shopping at? So I think that's something we're working on and working towards.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask you about, Galen, and it's something kind of bringing it back to the very beginning. You went to New Hampshire, you went to Virginia to learn about, you know, how other people are doing what you're doing. Has that come full circle, or is there anybody that's following you around and looking at what you're doing on y'all's farm?
Mostly people in Louisiana that are wanting to get involved. We love showing people, because if this type of agriculture and this type of marketing our products is going to gain any traction, we need more people taking more market share. Me by myself is not going to affect the market share of this movement. So we need more people producing products and getting them out. So that's something we're
one of the things that, like I said earlier, it's so fascinating to me because 65 acres, 100 acres, while it sounds like a lot when you're looking at land in Baton Rouge, when you look, you know, in West Baton Rouge Parish or when you look in Franklin Parish, that's attainable. And that's something that somebody in my generation, your generation,
right,
that's something that we can say, oh, wait, I can have a career in agriculture.
Yeah, or somebody's living on the farm and maybe the circumstances are that they're looking at having to leave the farm for another job. Getting the older generation to allow the younger generation to carve out a piece of that farm that they can produce their own enterprise on. And having out-of-the-box thinking of saying, yeah, we're growing thousands of acres of soybean and corn, but what else can we do on maybe this piece of land over here that's not as accessible or it isn't great for growing corn? What can we do on that piece of property? And I think that's the only way that this is going to grow, is because it's hard to buy land. So getting young farmers or young people who are interested in farming connected with some older farmers that have land that they want to leverage and are willing to allow them to farm it. One
of the neat things about it is that's, I think, small farms, in my opinion, coming from a kid whose family farms, you know, a large farm. I think those small farms, though, are what's going to bring in the next generation of farmers.
Right, and it can even be to where, you know, what's happening on that farm is keeping the bills paid and is the main enterprise, but just to, you know, capture some of the energy and excitement and of the younger generation, allowing them to produce something else on that piece of property.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. What about? I'm sorry, I'm going back home right now. I'm from Winsboro, in Northeast Louisiana. There's not a Baton Rouge sized market where I'm from. Any ideas what you would say to that person, you know, that lives in Winsboro or lives in Gilbert, you know, in Franklin Parish?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, there's a couple of people in North Louisiana, like Mahaffey Farms. You know, they're doing it up there around, I think they're around the Alexandria area, but getting that product to the person, making it more convenient to them. That Amazon's doing it. So unfortunately, everybody has been ingrained. Everything's got to be convenient. Add some convenience to it.
So don't make it so much about the market you live in, but make it about the market you can go to.
Yeah, or, you know, that person doesn't have a great grocery store to go to. Maybe you produce chicken and pork, and you got a buddy down the road that's producing tomatoes and heads of lettuce. Get your efforts together and get your product on that person's doorstep.
That's cool. That's an idea. Me and my brother had these kind of lofty ideas sometimes. I'm always trying to figure out a way to get out of the radio booth and out into a farm somewhere.
Start with the tomatoes. See if you can keep that one.
I have trouble with that at the house, actually.
Me too.
It's a real shame.
It is.
You can raise a couple hundred head of cattle, but you can't raise a couple tomatoes.
That's what I like to barter. We have meat. I'll barter for veggies.
That works. Galen, thanks for being here with us today, and good luck with the future growth at Iverstine, at the butcher and the farm.
Appreciate it. Had fun.